Hello and welcome to another review on ReviewingThis.com. Today we are reviewing the Altus Tank by Geo. This is a coilless tank, which means you do not have to replace your coils and you do not have to rebuild your coils. This is the biggest selling point for this atomizer. So I've had about 3 weeks to use this atomizer. Before I purchased this one, I used to use a drip tip, specifically the Kennedy. I absolutely love it, most of all for the flavor. That's why a lot of people use drip tips, because the flavor is really overwhelming. It's much better than a lot of these other tanks you'll find on the market. So when I was talking to one of the cashiers at a local vape shop, I was asking them if there's any atomizer out on the market that is able to hold a decent amount of liquid and at the same time give off a good flavor. And they recommended the Altus Tank. So now that I've had 3 weeks with it, I can tell you whether or not I like it. So right off the bat, what I was most impressed with when it came to this tank was how good the flavor was. Again, coming from a drip tip, I have high expectations in terms of how much flavor I get out of my juice. And even though the Geo tank isn't exactly the same as a drip tip, I can't imagine that it ever would be, it gets very darn close to it. Much closer than any other tank that I have personally used over the last 2 years. But unfortunately, that's where the pros end. What I've been most disappointed with when it comes to this tank is mostly in the design. So when it comes to refilling the tank, you have to refill it from the bottom, which means that when we unscrew it, the wicks, right, the cotton, it ends up coming out along with us, which means that it's very easy for it to get on your hands, very easy for it to get on the air vents, on all of these parts, right? So it's always really messy to refill it. I can't refill this on the go. If I'm going out somewhere and I'll be away for 8 hours, if I bring my my liquid with me, I know that my hands would definitely get messy. There's just no question about it. There's just simply no way to refill this without your hands becoming messy. Second negative thing, which is also a huge one, is how prone this tank is to leakage. Oops, sorry. So if you do read some reviews here or there online, you will see that some people are complaining about the amount of leakage that occurs with this tank. And I've had the same exact problem. So this is my mod over here, my RX 200. This is what I use. So I'll just place it on so you get an idea of how it looks like, right? So it looks pretty good, if you ask me. So what I had for the first 2 weeks or so, when I would use it, it would basically drip from the bottom right about here. So basically the liquid would pull together right about here, and then it would start leaking through. If I had the mod sitting in my pocket sideways or upside down, anything along those means, it was going to leak. It was going to leak on the actual mod itself, and it was going to give you those sticky fingers that absolutely everybody despises. What I found to be the best way to fix that would be to actually cut your own cotton. So if you hop on Amazon, you can definitely buy your own cotton, Japanese cotton specifically, and I found that to be the best way to kind of combat the amount of leakage going on, because when you do buy the tank, they do provide you with about 20 of their own pre-cut cottons that you will use to rewick your tank with, and I've used those those pre-cut cottons, and while it's very convenient since they did cut it for you, I found that the taste actually is not as phenomenal as it is when you cut your own, and also the amount of leakage is just too severe. Now, why I think a lot of the leakage occurs is another flaw in the design. So it's a little bit difficult to explain how this works right now, but because this tank does not use any coils, it uses a heating chip. The heating chip is located in the middle, right behind there, right through the middle. And when you build the tank, when you rewick the device, you basically fold Let me just take a piece of cotton here. You basically fold the cotton over the chip itself as you would like this, right? So the chip would be right there through the middle of it. And then these outer edges right here that you're seeing, these two outer edges right here and here, are the ones that are sticking out that you'll be able to see right now. So one on this side and one on this side. Those are the outer edges. Now the issue is I feel that it basically suffocates the cotton. It becomes a little bit way too tight over here, like this. So imagine I'm just pinching this right here. So when I pinch this over here, this makes it that much more difficult for the liquid to flow easily into the center. Because it doesn't flow into the center, what ends up happening is that the cotton ends up burning up too often. Once it burns up, that also means that when the liquid gets pulled into the center, because the cotton there is burnt up, it's not able to absorb the liquid itself, which inevitably ends up being that it leaks down, because it's basically like a tunnel all the way down, which leads to this section over here. I'm just going to show you. Leads to this over here. Now, maybe it's a bit hard to tell on camera, but you can see how there's actually some moisture going on there, right? So that's where it would leak. And once it fills up enough, it begins to just, come right through that hole. And just to show you exactly where it would be coming from, as you can see, there are these two gaps right here. Okay, so if the cotton is not able to absorb the liquid's going to flow down through those holes, end up in here, inevitably go right through the middle there, right? And then ends up over here, and then it leaks down your hands. Very big pain in the ass. I've had that being a humongous issue for the first 2 weeks that I've had this tank, ever since I started cutting my own cotton and making it much thicker. So, for example, I don't have the actual pre-cut cottons on me right now that came with the tank, but this would be an example of one that I would use, right? And if you compare it to the one that you will get in the package of the tank, you will notice this one's definitely much thicker. I haven't been able to exactly determine why. Maybe using the thicker cotton actually works, because when you think about it, if it's thicker, it's going to be pinching it up even more often. But maybe that's a false assumption from me, that it's pinching it way too much. But I've just simply found that using a thicker cotton led to less leakage overall. And most of all, using my own cotton, I've had much better flavor. Now, when you put those things aside, the tank itself, it's very good. It is. If you're able to use your own cotton, make it thick, pre-cut it, you will have to rewick it about every 4 or 5 days, I would have to say, because it definitely burns. It burns quite often. If you do read some other reviews online, you will see that this tank is very prone to burning the liquid quite soon, and you'll notice a remarkable change in the flavor. So it's be quite clear when it is burnt. But when it comes to the actual flavoring, it's phenomenal. I'm not gonna lie. And I actually got this tank for nearly $100 from my local vape shop. If I go to their website, to Altus, their website being, just give me a moment, I'll look it up for you guys. Their website is Origin Vape. So if I go over to Origin Vape, I can see right now that the tank is available for $44. I mean, $45 basically. It's a good deal, in other words. The reason why I was looking for a tank similar to this one was simply due to not having to refill my drip tip every 5, 6, 7 pulls. It's a pain in the ass. While with this tank, I'm actually able to step outside for 3, 4 hours, take a few pulls here or there, and it will last me. When it comes to an overall rating, I would have to give this product a 3.5. It would get a 5 out of 5 from me. Due to the flavor, if they were simply able to change it from being a bottom fill to a top fill, that's honestly my biggest grip with the product. Having to unscrew all the bottom pieces, take it apart into two pieces like that, pour it in, it always gets messy, and that's just way too much. If it was a top fill, if we could just unscrew this top section, pour it in, it would be so much more convenient than it is right now. I have solved the leakage problem for now, at least it seems so, so that's not a priority on my list. Granted, for any new users, that is what I suggest, because I do feel if you will be using their pre-cut cotton, you will experience leakage. At least I did, and other people that have been reviewing this product, they've experienced the same. And I think that covers my review on the Altus Tank. Thank you for listening, and you can find my detailed review on our website at reviewingthis.com. Thank you.